This is I'll do that again. Okay, this is Chris Saxman with Virginia Free, Executive Director of Virginia Free, a nonpartisan, nonprofit, pro-business advocacy organization here in the Commonwealth of Virginia for almost 30 years, formed by the Virginia Business Council to keep a pro-business growth, economic growth Commonwealth moving forward. And today I'm joined, again, second day in a row, not by a candidate or a politician, but by someone in the business community. I'm joined by Ken Yagelski of the Virginia Natural Gas Company. Ken, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Chris. Good afternoon. It's great to join you.
Well, Ken, you're an expert in a very, very controversial issue in the Commonwealth today, the Atlantic Coast Pipeline that is going to hopefully deliver natural gas from the West Virginia region to predominantly Hampton Roads, and all the needs that are there for natural gas. Tell us about the need in the Hampton Roads region for this project. I mean, why are we doing this?
Yeah, great question, Chris. The customers in the Hampton Roads area who utilize natural gas, their demand continues to grow. We continue to add meters every year. Commercial and industrial users have more need for natural gas, and the ability to deliver that natural gas to our customers is limited. And I'm not talking about the Virginia Natural Gas Distribution System. We're able to continually grow that system and expand it to meet the needs of our customers. But the natural gas has to be delivered to our system from the upstream sources, from areas in the country where it's produced. And that system is constrained, and it is needs to continue to be developed and grow in order to meet customers' demand as it increases over time.
The demand part of it. What does that mean to the customer currently being provided by your company in the Hampton Roads region? If there's congestion, and that constrains in the Hampton Roads region, though, that they know congestion. Anyone in traffic in North Virginia, they understand congestion. How does that translate into usage for the residential and commercial customers?
Yeah, well, there's actually two parts to that. One is actually the ability to deliver that natural gas to the customer. In other words, will that supply be reliable? Can they count on it being there when they need it? And the other part is associated with price. The price of the commodity itself, not the cost to deliver the gas, but the price of the natural gas commodity. So as far as the reliability aspect of it, if there's insufficient upstream capacity, if there's not a way to actually transport the natural gas from areas where it's produced in the United States to the Virginia Natural Gas Distribution System, there may be a need to curtail customers or interrupt them. Or, worse yet, that, it would be an unplanned event that customers would be curtailed in an unplanned way and their service would go out. And certainly we're concerned about that reliability. We want customers, especially our residential and commercial firm customers, to be able to continue to receive gas as they expect. The price part comes with a constrained upstream system. As there are more constraints in the way to transport the natural gas, it becomes more expensive, and that becomes an issue for our customers because that gets reflected in their bill. So we certainly want to protect the price of the natural gas that our customers are going to see, try to manage it the best that we can, and that can only be assured if you have sufficient upstream capacity.
And what we try to do in politics a lot, as you know, Ken, is explain what's actually going on. The world is complex, the economies are complex, your business is complex, but for most people, because they're so busy, because they're so bombarded with all the information, be it on social media, in their daily lives, it's hard to push through with a message that is accurate and, if you will, digestible for I don't want to say the average customer, the average voter, or whomever, in terms of what it really means to those people. And you say it goes to their bills. How does it increase the cost and then actually go to their gas bill?
Well, I'll take you back. The last winter was not very cold, so we weren't very challenged. We've had a relatively warm winter. But if you go back to the 2014, 2015 heating season, we had a few cold days, not unlike the polar vortex winter of the 2013, 2014. On those coldest days, when natural gas would typically trade at about $3 per MMBTU, or for a million cubic feet, it was trading at in the Central Virginia area, it was trading at 50 times that value. So you would see gas prices at $100 an MMBTU. Now, that is if you didn't have sufficient upstream capacity, if you were unable to reach back to the producing area where that gas was produced, if you had to buy it delivered to Virginia Natural Gas, those prices were up to 50 times that level. So that's what we're concerned about as far as managing the price to our customers. We don't want to have to buy natural gas at those kind of prices and have it potentially impact our customers' bill.
Wow. 50 times the price.
Correct.
That's extraordinary. And with the amount of growth that's going on throughout the Commonwealth, we had a Columbia Gas on yesterday talking about their ethics award. They talked about how much growth has occurred in the demand for natural gas because prices has gone down so much and regulations have changed so much on coal burning. The move to converting power generation to being supplied by natural gas is obviously going to have an impact. And here, just I guess 13 years ago, before the fracking revolution occurred, gas prices were so high, this would have been inconceivable to have this kind of pricing decline occur.
Absolutely correct. I mean, we're truly the producing environment that we have today has really changed the game for all natural gas consumers. And I mentioned we're in the $3-4 range for natural gas on a wholesale level now. When you're absolutely right, 10 years ago we were easily paying $15 to $20 for that same price, and again, that is just on average for your typical day, and it's those very high demand days when the weather is the coldest or the hottest. That's when the natural gas demand is at its high. That's when the prices can get out of reach, and that's really where the upstream capacity needs come into play. That's where Atlantic Coast Pipeline is very important. If you are a large industrial user, a power generation facility, and utilize a lot of natural gas every day, you want that price to be moderate. You don't want a lot of volatility in natural gas prices. And if there are constraints in the interstate pipeline system, that volatility is
Well, I mean, those are. I don't want, and I don't take this pejoratively, but those are sort of what the business guys talk about. We see that in the business world and go, oh my gosh, 5 times higher prices to generate their electricity. What does that mean to the average consumer when it comes down to that? When you have but for the fracking, gas prices would be 5 times higher than they are today.
Um, yes, absolutely. I mean, it wasn't, 10 years ago, we were worried about where natural gas was going to come from, and we were building natural gas import facilities in the Gulf Coast region and reactivating the Cove Point import facility to bring natural gas in from other sources. So, yeah, I mean, and I would say it's not even just fracking. It's probably, I mean, we've been fracking since the 1940s, so that's
not new. That's not new.
It's but horizontal drilling associated with the fracking has probably been the fundamental change in the technology, the ability to not just drill a vertical well, but to go 5 miles down and turn left and go across that shale formation and get across the fractures. That's where the change has really occurred. And it has brought an abundance of natural gas supply. It's moderated prices to levels that we haven't seen for decades, and has assured a level supply availability for many decades into the future. So, so we have the supply situation figured out, but that's in the producing area. So we have
Right.
supply that we can get out of the ground. What we need to be able to do is to transport that natural gas to the distribution companies so our customers can actually receive it and use it.
And keep prices low. I mean,
That's
at the end of the day, no one wants to see their gas bill go up 5 times what they're currently paying. I mean, I think we know about that, because what you don't hear in this whole conversation is how prices have gone down, and we want to keep them low for economic stability, one thing, but also for that residential user who doesn't want to have to make the decision between keeping the heat on in the winter and paying the gas bill.
That's absolutely correct. And I could say probably every local distribution company in the United States has seen that issue go away as far as the arrearage with customers who are having difficulty pay. That has become much less of an issue now that natural gas prices have become more manageable.
Well, I mean, it's cheap. People can pay their gas bills. I mean, I used to be in the legislature, and one of the reasons I actually got introduced to legislation was because gas prices were so high. It was almost shuttering the school my kids were attending. The gas prices to fire the furnaces, the boilers, was so high it was going to put this small Catholic school out of business. And I went down there, and I tell you what, one of the legislators who I admire to this day, we were in one of the meeting rooms. I'm familiar with the old General Assembly building, which will soon be demolished, thank God. Oh, you have been there.
Yes.
was was Senator Louise Lucas fighting for her constituents because gas prices were so high. And she was just ripping this. I don't know if it was a guy from the SCC or a gas company or whatever, but I wasn't even elected and thinking about running. And I was like, wow, that's what this issue is doing to people. They were that angry about their gas bills. This is probably 2000, 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it was tense. But now we're in a situation in policy where the prices are so good. No, people are complaining because we're trying to build more pipelines.
Yeah.
If the prices were where they were, they'd be like, yeah, build a pipeline, right?
Yeah, that's probably true.
I mean, is this because of we're being so successful and delivering this product to the people that they're now, it's a little bit more comfortable. They can go, gee, no, we don't need that.
Well, we're very successful at getting that out of the ground, but we still have. I mean, there's still volatility related to transportation constraints, and there's still an issue that at some point, as natural gas demand continues to grow, just either through organic growth of new housing starts and new commercial businesses, but also economic development growth. I mean, I think across the Commonwealth, everybody's working hard to try to help develop the economy and get more jobs, get more industrial and manufacturing facilities in place. And, they require fuel. They require natural gas. They require electricity fueled by natural gas. And we have to have a way to get that natural gas, again, from the producing areas to these markets to help that happen. And that's where the infrastructure is really vital and where it is going to be needed. I mean, we have, developing infrastructure is very expensive and it takes a lot of time. And Virginia Natural Gas is no different than any other local distribution company. They plan ahead well into the future. We're looking 5-10 years out because we know it takes a long time to build the infrastructure. And right. we have adequate infrastructure for today. I mean, that's our responsibility to make sure our customers have reliable and safe natural gas service. We can do that today. The problem is, if we continue to see the growth that we have 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we will not have that infrastructure in place to meet the customer's demand. And that is our concern. That's why we participated in the Atlantic Coast Pipeline project, because we needed that additional capacity for transporting natural gas to the Hampton Roads area.
Well, that's great stuff, Ken. Obviously, there's a need when we've discussed that reliability, having have the capacity needs met. But where people have, let's dispel some of the myths out there. This might be an episode of myth busting the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. One, is this gas going to be exported?
Yeah, it is not. Certainly
So
the
don't say
Antitrust.
yeah, it's not. Just say no, it's not going to be
Yeah, yeah, no.
exported.
Yes, that's an important
Cut.
question. No, no, the gas is not going to be exported. And that's a critical point in that there are no export facilities anywhere near this pipeline. The infrastructure, even that's planned for Atlantic Coast Pipeline, is not adequate to support an export facility. If you think of a facility like Cove Point, that's designed to export billions of cubic feet per day, that is certainly not the capability of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, and definitely not its capability to the Hampton Roads area.
I mean, the capacity in this line, it's only 3 feet in diameter. I mean, the amount of gas that's already being purchased by the customers down there, it would have no ability to get the gas to export.
Well,
That's too much capacity.
And just to clarify, the size of the pipe is not that large coming to Hampton Roads. So from its origin in Marks Junction, West Virginia, to points in North Carolina, it is the large diameter pipe. But the lateral that's going to come from the Greensville area over to Hampton Roads is much smaller. It's a much smaller diameter pipe, certainly not capable of delivering the volumes of natural gas required for export. And it was designed to deliver the volume of natural gas that Virginia Natural Gas contracted for to have delivered at its terminus in Chesapeake.
Okay, so it's impossible then to have this gas go to export from the pipeline that's being suggested.
For the pipe that is planned to be constructed, it would be physically impossible for it to have enough capacity for export operations.
I'm gonna physically impossible. That's a good word. Physically impossible, because in today's political climate, as you know, it's so hard to break through with what is real. I mean, if it's physically impossible to deliver gas for export, you can't do it. I mean, Cove Point is up in the Chesapeake area, Maryland. That's exporting it, and we turned it around because it was supposed to be an import facility because we needed so much gas. Now that we have the gas and prices are going down, we're able to export it through Cove Point. This is not that.
Correct.
And I'm thanks for sharing. And now you have a little whiteboard there. Show us where the gas is going in Virginia. Where is it? Where's the need?
Well, and part of what I wanted to demonstrate was, you talked about the whole myth busting aspect. And there's a lot of discussion about, well, there's existing pipes in Virginia. Why do you need Atlantic Coast Pipeline? And so I wanted to demonstrate a little bit specifically for Virginia Natural Gas and show that, again, I mentioned how constructing these projects, very expensive and very time consuming. They're like once in a generation type of projects. So I'll take you back in history a little bit and start with how Virginia Natural Gas originally received natural gas to distribute to its customers. And that was through the Columbia Gas Transmission System. So Columbia Gas Transmission actually begins in Leach, Kentucky, comes across West Virginia, and it terminates in Chesapeake. And this was built in the 1940s. And this is how Virginia Natural Gas originally received natural gas to distribute to its customers. And there's a couple of laterals that come across the James River. And just to clarify, Virginia Natural Gas serves the southwest corner of the state, essentially from Richmond down to Newport News and Virginia Beach in the Suffolk areas. So from the 1940s, this was adequate to serve the customer's demand. And then, it finally grew to the point that this was unable to support that. And in the 1990s, Virginia Natural Gas connected its system with Dominion Transmission up in Northern Virginia near Quantico, and built a distribution pipe that came down into the peninsula to serve more customer demand that way. And that was sufficient again for, another couple of generations. In 2010, we actually came across the harbor here, the bay, with the Hampton Roads crossing, and that pipe allowed us to move some of this gas being delivered from Dominion Transmission down into the Norfolk area. Now, this is this is the point where the reliability issue comes into play and the capability comes into play. Again, the Columbia Gas Transmission System, built in the 1940s, fully contracted, fully at capacity. You can't just say, I want more gas to be delivered on here. It's not capable of doing that. Same with the Dominion Transmission System that comes down from points in Pennsylvania and Ohio. Again, fully contracted, fully at capacity. Even if we wanted more, it would take a meaningful expansion project for that to deliver any additional gas. Now, we have about nearly 300,000 customers that are being served by these two pipes. And there's always the concern that what happens if this pipe happens to go out of service? Then all of a sudden everything is, it's hanging off of one of those pipes, and it would be inadequate. It would not be able to support everybody's needs. So there is a reliability issue. Now, we also have the Transco gas pipeline that comes from the Gulf Coast up through the Carolinas, and it comes near Richmond up to Northern Virginia to points in New York. And there's the South Virginia lateral from Transco that comes this way, and it does connect with the Columbia system here, and there's some supplies available to that. But again, it's fully contracted, fully at capacity. It would take an expansion project. So, this is where our desire for having the Atlantic Coast Pipeline comes into play. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline is designed to come out of West Virginia and go down to points in the Carolinas with a lateral that comes again to Chesapeake. And it's the reliability aspect of having yet a third source now to serve the Hampton Roads area. That's important to us. And also the diversity of production. I mentioned that the Columbia Gas Transmission System comes back from Leach, Kentucky. It comes through areas of West Virginia and Appalachia to access production in those areas. The Dominion system goes up into Pennsylvania. It accesses some Marcellus Shale and Utica Shale production. The Transco pipeline comes out of the Gulf Coast and Texas area. So, the reason why we have a desire for ACP also is for diversity of production. It reaches back to other producers. We don't rely on one particular production area. If there's a disruption or interruption in their capability to produce, it doesn't impact the prices to our customers or the delivery of natural gas.
Wow. There's a lot of pipes out there that already exist and been functioning for a long time. That's an impressive overview of where it's all going. And what is your customer base? Is it predominantly residential or commercial?
Well, it's predominantly residential and residential commercial, not very much industrial. And part of that is because of the inability to deliver the volumes of natural gas required for a large manufacturer and industrial user. I mean, we are kind of at the cul-de-sac of the natural gas pipeline system. It's at it's the end of the line.
Right.
And again, the whole idea that generational type of projects, right? It's not like, hey, a large manufacturer wants a lot of natural gas, let's build a pipeline for them. You can't just simply, do it at the drop of a hat. It takes many years for that to happen. And over the years, these existing pipelines, they've been expanded, right? They've added compression to be able to push more gas through them. maybe they've increased the diameter of the pipe where it's been possible to do that. But they've kind of, reached the end of that road. It's no longer capable for them to do that.
Okay.
And so the capacity, it's not ubiquitous. It just doesn't exist everywhere. And you'll hear about for example, Columbia announced an expansion project of their system. It also goes from the same origin in Leach, Kentucky, up to the Washington, D.C. area. And they announced an expansion of this segment up here. This is called their WB pipeline. And there was a lot of I heard a lot of talk about, well, gee, Columbia is expanding their system in Virginia. That ought to help Hampton Roads, with their supply issues. But it's kind of interesting because this kind of follows, similar to the interstate pipeline system. That statement is like saying, by adding lanes to I-66, all of a sudden I've relieved a constraint through the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. It just doesn't work that way.
It just doesn't work that way. Right. Two different markets.
It really is, point to point specific. You have to, be able to move gas from a specific receipt point to a specific delivery point, and it's just not, capacity everywhere.
When you talk about how long, and I don't want to keep you too much longer, and I appreciate your time today. Mm-hmm. When you talk about, having to plan this out for 5 to 10 years, and it's been 3 since this was announced, 3.5, before it was announced. How long did you all see this need before that? How long before? I mean, are we at year 6, year 7 when you said, oh, hey, we've got to do this?
Yeah, well, we're reaching a critical point in that where we would have to look for, certain alternatives. Now, what we've done in the past, again, being at the cul-de-sac and not having the ability to just tap into a new pipeline, we've entertained other projects that would build pipes in the past. But, many of them have been just uneconomical. They've just been, the price has just been way too high. It would have, much too high of an impact on our customers. What we've done a bit in the past is, we would build peak shaving facilities. So as the name might imply, when customer demand is very high, we can shave off that peak by storing a small amount of natural gas in the Hampton Roads area, and then redelivering that natural gas when the customer's demand is very high. But that's very expensive too, those type of facilities. They can only store a certain inventory of natural gas, so it would only be able to meet the peak demand for a few days out of the year. That's been the economic development challenge is,
right.
If you're a large industrial user, you need a large volume of gas 365 days a year.
You can't go to Hampton Roads right now then.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, they can't even attract.
That because we can serve our customer need for customers' peak demand needs for the coldest days of the year. But if the customer demand was increased higher for year round, we would have the inability to be able to serve them with their supply.
And because of that, the pricing would throw them, even if they said, no, we're definitely coming to Hampton Roads. They said, okay, but it's going to jack up your prices on gas and your energy prices and everybody else's.
That's right. That's right. So with ACP, when that was introduced to us at a price that was more competitive than what their other options were at the time, we were very excited about the chance to participate in that project and sign up as a customer. It will certainly solve our customer demand issue for the near term. I mean, customer demand, if it continues to grow, we'll have to look for another alternative, when that next generation comes along. But it will certainly solve our issue for the next, 8 to 10 years.
Wow, that's great stuff, Ken. Really appreciate your time and sharing with us your knowledge of why this is so important. What are the needs, and frankly, what are the benefits? I mean, this is lower energy prices, lower utility costs for the poor and the working poor, who are disproportionately, if you will, advantaged by this pipeline versus just companies and corporations, and everyone gets hit around like we're just businesses are just trying to make money off this. I mean, at the end of the day, this helps the poor and the working poor more than any other sector. And it seems to me. I mean, I might be off base, but is that something y'all feel every day?
Well, I think you're right on, Chris. I mean, being able to manage the volatility that I talked about earlier, being able to keep gas prices low and stable and predictable is important for all consumers, right? Not just commercial industrial users, but residential as well. And for those that are income challenged, knowing that your heating costs will be reasonable is, I think, pretty important while we're still struggling with other economic issues in the region.
Well, especially when so much of the region is dominated by veterans who are on fixed incomes, retirees who are on fixed incomes. I mean, when income is fixed and you can lower costs, boy, you make some people in that with that gap a little bit happier, a little bit more money in their pocket to invest or to save for their future. I mean, even that's just an economic benefit for everybody. So I think it's probably one of the things that's most not discussed in this whole issue.
And having adequate infrastructure like Atlantic Coast Pipeline will allow us to help manage those prices
Yeah.
going forward as well. So the benefit of being able to leverage all that shale production and actually be able to deliver that gas to our natural gas customers and help to keep their heating costs low and reasonable and reliable and safe for years to come.
Well, especially when just 10 years ago, prices would have been 5 times what they are right now. So we definitely want to keep prices down and keep our homes warm in the winter and keep our air conditioners running in the summer. Ken, thanks again for joining us, and we wish Virginia Natural Gas the very best of luck as this process continues. And I'm sure we're going to have some questions that I'm going to go back to you and say, Ken, we've got a few questions. So hopefully we'll have you back on here to better inform not only the business community of the Commonwealth, but its citizens as well. Thank you for your time today.
You bet, Chris. Have a great day.
You do the same.